Articles on the dodo share gripping rescues, but few rival what happened off Labrador's coast. Curious how an ordinary day turned into a life-changing moment? Let's find out. The sea was alive with motion. Bitter winds sliced through the morning air as steel-gray waves rolled across the horizon. The familiar scent of salt water lingered in the breeze. It seemed like just another solid day on the water to the seasoned fishermen. Though the sun hadn't fully broken over the icy horizon, the frigid waters off the coast of Labrador were already stirring. Mallory Harrigan tugged his jacket snugly around him, the type designed to keep out the ocean spray, though it never truly softened the sting of the wind. Nearby, his longtime friends, Cliff and Alan Russell, worked in quiet rhythm, preparing the boat just as they had countless times before. They moved with practiced ease, a box of bait here, a coil of rope there, laughter rising above the sound of waves slapping the hull. One final check of the engine, and the trio was off, pushing into the cold North Atlantic with the steady confidence that comes from years spent navigating its wild embrace. Yet, even in a place ruled by habit, the ocean never forgets to surprise. Stretching more than 7,000 kilometers, Labrador's rugged coastline is shaped by ancient glaciers, scattered with drifting icebergs, and whipped by winds that can shift from calm to ferocious in mere moments. Based on the latest data from Canada's Department of Fisheries and Oceans, over 90% of communities in this region still rely heavily on the ocean for their livelihoods. However, the same waters trigger dozens of rescue missions every year due to sudden weather changes and treacherous ice flows. But that morning felt calm. Too calm. The boat's engine hummed in a steady rhythm. It cut through the swells effortlessly. Seabirds wheeled overhead, their calls echoing through the mist. A fine fog hugged the surface of the water like a veil, as if nature herself was keeping something secret. It was quiet, peaceful, just the way we like it, Mallory would later recall. Didn't expect the ocean to test us that day. They ventured farther out, leaving the safety of the shoreline behind. Waves grew stronger, more determined, and the light shimmered on floating sheets of ice. The fishermen stayed sharp, eyes sweeping the horizon, instinctively reading the rhythm of the sea. The day was meant for fishing, but here, where nature always has the final say, the ocean had a different story to tell. And that morning, what it brought them wasn't a net full of fish, but something unexpected, something extraordinary, something is fighting for its life. But just as they settled into routine, the sea revealed something so strange and haunting, it stopped even the most seasoned men in their tracks. The mist thickened as the fishing boat drifted farther from the safety of the Labrador shoreline. Visibility narrowed and the wind sharpened. It sliced beneath their jackets, curling behind ears and clawing at exposed skin. Then, just beyond the crashing swells, something began to rise. At first it was little more than a shadow, a faint bulge hovering in the fog, but with every passing second, the outline sharpened. It looked like a sea monster breaking through the mist, Mallory would later recall. We'd seen icebergs before, but nothing quite like this. What emerged wasn't just ice. It was a spectacle, a structure so massive it loomed over the water like a frozen cathedral. According to the most recent data from the Canadian Ice Service, icebergs that reached the Labrador Sea often weigh well over 100,000 tons. Many of them travel more than 1,000 kilometers from the glaciers of Greenland before they melt. And yet, this one felt different. This iceberg wasn't just large, it was otherworldly. One side curled upward in the shape of what looked like an enormous tail fin. The fishermen slowed their boat, unable to look away from the icy monument before them. And then, something moved. At the farthest tip of the ice, barely visible against the white, a dark figure appeared. "Do you see that?" Alan asked, squinting into the haze. "There's something up there." The men leaned forward. At first glance, they assumed it was a seabird, maybe a thick-billed murra or even a puffin. But something didn't add up. It didn't flap. It didn't fly. And it certainly wasn't a seal, no smooth, blubbery mass hauling itself across the snow. This creature stood. It had legs, a long tail, shaggy fur clinging to its trembling frame, and eyes wide with fear. It wasn't a seal. It wasn't a bird. What they had found was an Arctic fox, stranded, shivering, alone. But what they thought was just a strange sight soon became a race against nature, one that none of them were prepared for. As the fishermen brought their boat alongside the towering mass of ice, the shape on the iceberg sharpened into view. It was small, frail. Its white fur, patchy and soaked, clung to a quivering body braced against the wind. Alone, at the very edge of the frozen giant stood an Arctic fox, stranded in the middle of the sea, miles from the nearest land. "He's done for if we don't act," Cliff said, his hands gripping the boat rail tightly. Mallory raised his binoculars, cutting through the mist. The fox was barely upright, slipping every so often on the melting ice. Above, gulls wheeled in noisy circles, their cries sharp and unrelenting. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. "There's no land anywhere near here," Alan said under his breath. "How the hell did it get out this far?" It was a question none of them could answer. Arctic foxes are known for their resilience. According to recent wildlife tracking studies, they have been recorded traveling more than 4,500 kilometers across frozen terrain in search of food. One documented journey saw a young fox make it from Norway's Svalbard archipelago to Canada's Ellesmere Island. But drifting out to sea alone, stranded on an iceberg, that defied even their toughest instincts. Yet this one had somehow made it here. Just a few meters away, three men stood frozen, not from the cold, but from the gravity of the moment. "If we leave now, it won't survive," Mallory whispered. The gulls screamed louder, circling lower. The ice cracked beneath the fox's delicate paws. Its eyes darted in every direction. No shelter, no solid ground, no escape, only the ocean and ice, and time was running out. Could this wild creature still be saved? Before we continue, I have a special 10-second request for all of you listening. If you can help me in any way, just press the notification bell and hit that subscribe button. It means the world. It really supports this channel. And if you do that for me, I promise my team and I will do everything we can to make this show even better for you. Deal? The rescue mission. The fox's legs trembled. Her fur, soaked through, clung tightly like a threadbare coat worn thin by the cold. Each breath came fast, shallow, and sharp. Behind her there was nothing but open sea. "If she jumps, that's the end," Alan said quietly, watching her edge dangerously close to the drop. That was the breaking point. Without wasting a second, Cliff took the helm and eased the boat forward, slowly, carefully, making sure not to startle her. The hull slapped against the icy water. Mallory reached for a rope, rough, worn, but reliable, and moved swiftly toward the bow. "Keep her calm," he said under his breath. "Don't let her bolt." Alan stayed focused, binoculars locked on her every twitch, guiding Mallory with quick directions. The iceberg was slick and uneven, dangerous ground, but Mallory climbed aboard without pause. Snow crunched beneath his boots. The wind shrieked louder. The fox shrank low, ears and tail tucked, body pressed to the ice. Every muscle looked ready to spring straight into the freezing sea. "We're losing her," Alan shouted. Cliff's eyes didn't leave the ice. "We need to shift the edge," he said, tossing a short-handled axe to Mallory. It was normally used for hacking frozen fishing lines. Now it had to carve a path to survival. No time to argue, no time to think twice. Mallory began chipping at the ice, quick, precise strikes to change its shape. They needed to steer her gently toward safety. The cracks echoed across the water like distant thunder. Slabs of ice splashed into the sea below. And yet, the fox stayed. She flinched, but didn't flee. Mallory crouched low, extending the rope. His voice, barely a whisper, cut through the wind. "Easy now. You're all right. We're here. You're safe." Stillness. Tension. Then movement. Just a whisper at first. She inched forward. Then another step. In one clean motion, Mallory looped the rope around her small torso and lifted her from the ice. Safe. The fox didn't resist. She didn't cry out. She simply curled into the box they had prepared, motionless, silent, barely more than breath. The men stood frozen, their eyes locked on the fragile creature now resting at their feet. "We actually did it," Cliff murmured, disbelief thick in his voice. "I can't believe she trusted us." In that quiet moment, they knew this had become something more than survival. Mallory placed the small Arctic fox gently into a crate lined with soft towels. She didn't fight. She didn't move. Her eyes stared forward, locked in fear. She was still breathing, but only just. As the boat turned back toward the distant coastline, it rocked softly with the motion of the sea. Outside, the world rumbled, wind howled, waves slapped against the hull, and gulls cried overhead. But within that crate, in that moment, there was nothing but silence. Curled tightly in the box, the fox lay motionless, not from peace, but from shock. She looked like she had shut down completely, Cliff would later say, like her mind had gone somewhere far away. And there's science behind it. According to the most recent findings from the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, Arctic animals under stress often enter a freeze response, an instinctive survival mechanism. It allows them to conserve energy and avoid further harm. While common in foxes caught in traps or storms, this kind of trauma-induced stillness is rarely seen during rescues at sea. Still, the men didn't give up. They kept her warm, shielded her from the wind, made sure she was safe. Then, quietly, Mallory placed a small piece of sausage near her mouth. Nothing. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The boat sliced steadily through the icy water. Still, the fox remained still, until her nose moved, her head tilted ever so slightly. "We didn't move," Alan recalled. "We didn't even breathe." The fox, still trembling, leaned forward. Her mouth met the food, and slowly she began to eat. Watching her nibble, "We cheered like little kids," Mallory said with a soft laugh. "It felt like we were watching her come back to life." With every careful bite, her breathing grew stronger. Her eyes blinked. She started tracking the faces around her. She was still afraid, but no longer frozen. The fox curled up again, this time not from panic, but simply to rest. And the men, tired, eyes red from wind and something more, looked at one another in silence. They didn't need words, because some moments speak for themselves. Have you ever helped an animal in distress or seen one find its strength again? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how nature has touched your life too. By the time they reached the shore, the wind had softened, but something far deeper had shifted. The fishermen could have released her then and there, letting her disappear into the wild, but the memory of her fear, the way she had surrendered to their care, stayed with them. She wasn't ready to be alone, so they made a different choice. They brought her to an old cottage near William Bay, a quiet stretch along the Labrador coast, where dense forest meets jagged shoreline, and the sea laps gently at weathered stones. The place was modest, forgotten by most, but to the fox it offered something rare: peace. With care, they built her a small den from stacked driftwood and fishing blankets. They placed food just outside the entrance, and every morning and every night they came to check on her, quietly, patiently. "We weren't keeping her," Mallory later explained. "We were just giving her a place to recover." And remarkably, she stayed. At first, she lingered in the shadows, distant and watchful. But within a few days she began to appear when she heard footsteps in the snow. Slowly, carefully she emerged, tail curled, ears perked, waiting near the corner of the cottage. "It was like she knew us," Alan said, "like she hadn't forgotten." Before long, others took notice, not for the size of the fish they'd hauled in, but for the life they had saved. People came from nearby villages, parents brought their children, hunters left gifts. One elder placed a hand-carved wooden fox outside her den, a tribute to her journey. She became more than a rescue. She became a symbol, a reminder that even in one of the world's most unforgiving places, life still finds ways to heal. Labrador's winters are no mercy. According to Environment and Climate Change Canada, this region often endures temperatures below -25°C, with snow and coastal winds lasting for more than half the year. Survival demands more than strength. It requires adaptability and connection. And now, she had both. Her white coat shimmered against the snow, Mallory remembered, his voice quiet. She belonged to the wild, but she remembered the hands that helped her. She still roamed freely, still vanished for days at a time, hunting beneath the trees. But just as the fox found her place in the wild, something even more unexpected began to take root in the hearts of those around her. As the months passed, the land continued its cycle. Snow melted into coastal fog, spring brought moss-covered ground, and eventually, ice returned once again. Yet through it all, the Arctic fox remained. She never strayed far from William Bay. Some days she vanished for hours, other times she disappeared into the forest for several days, but without fail, she always came back. She had her freedom, Mallory said quietly, but she still chose to return. Not because she needed to, because she wanted to. And Mallory found himself returning too, more often than before, not just to fish, but to sit quietly near the rocks by the old cottage. He'd bring a thermos, a few sausages in his pack, and wait, watching the tree line, listening for the soft rhythm of paws pressing into snow. Most days she came. Her white coat shimmered beneath the morning light, blending almost completely into the winter landscape, but her eyes gave her away, alert. "I think we needed her as much as she needed us," Mallory reflected. It reminded us what it means to care for something wild, fragile, and beautiful. Over time, it became something more than a rescue story. It became part of the land itself. Locals began to call it Nanook, the word for polar bear in Inuktitut, a tribute to her quiet strength despite her small frame. School children wrote poems about her. Tourists asked where they might glimpse the ice fox. And once each year, the community gathered at the edge of the woods to leave small offerings, flowers, dried fish, and hand-carved stones. Not to disturb her, just to honor her. The story spread, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real, and that sincerity struck a chord. According to the latest data from Parks Canada, more than 70% of Canadians now report feeling a growing emotional connection to wildlife. Many attribute it to first-hand encounters or meaningful local stories, ones that make conservation feel personal. Because connection creates care, and for many, the story of the fox they called Nanook became exactly that, an unexpected bond between people, place, and the untamed life that lives beside us. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. I hope you'll love this content. Comment below about the next topic you'd like to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.